So what does it really mean for a machine to be intelligent? I don't just mean can it calculate things fast, but can it understand? This is one of the absolute biggest questions in technology, and the answer, believe it or not, starts way back at the very beginning of AI. Let's get into it.
I mean, think about the phone that's probably in your pocket right now. You can ask your personal assistant a question and boom, it gives you an answer. It can even tell you a pretty bad joke if you ask it to. But is it actually thinking? Does it get what you're asking, or is it just pulling off a really clever trick?
You know, this isn't some new question we just came up with. It's a huge philosophical fight that has been shaping the world of artificial intelligence since day one. And to really get a handle on where we are now, we have to go back to the very first big idea about what AI could even be.
Okay, so let's jump into that first big idea. In the early days of AI, the pioneers had this revolutionary dream for how to build an intelligent machine. And it was all about one thing: symbols.
All right, let's wind the clock back to 1956. You've got two computer scientists, Alan Noel and Herbert Simon. They built this program called the General Problem Solver, and it was based on this incredibly bold and honestly pretty elegant idea about what intelligence actually is.
They called it the physical symbol system hypothesis. Yeah, I know, it's a bit of a mouthful, but the idea behind it is actually super simple. They basically argued that thinking, well, it's nothing more than just shuffling symbols around based on a set of rules. That's it.
And this kind of makes sense, right? We humans do this all the time without even thinking about it. You see a red octagon, you know it means stop. The letter A represents a sound. Their whole argument was, look, if we can just build a machine that connects the right symbols in the right way, that machine will be intelligent. Simple. But, as it turns out, not everyone was buying it.
And that brings us to our second big idea, which really is a direct challenge to the first one. In 1980, a philosopher named John Searle came up with this brilliant thought experiment that just completely flipped the script. It's called the Chinese room argument.
Okay, so here's how it works. Picture this. You are locked inside a room with no windows. You don't speak a single word of Chinese. On a desk in front of you, there's a massive rule book, all written in English. Now, a little note with Chinese characters on it gets slid through a mail slot. Your rule book tells you, hey, if you see this squiggly line next to that one, write down this other squiggly line. So you just follow the instructions, find the right response, copy it down, and slide it back out.
Now, to the person on the outside, it looks like they're having a perfectly normal, fluent conversation in Chinese. They think they're talking to someone who completely understands them. But the person inside the room, they have absolutely no idea what's going on. They're just matching symbols based on a rulebook.
And that is Searle's big gotcha moment. The entire system, the person plus that giant rulebook, is acting intelligent. It passes the test, but there is zero, and I mean zero, actual understanding happening inside that room. This thought experiment drives a huge wedge between just behaving intelligently and actually comprehending something. Following the rules perfectly is not the same thing as genuine intelligence.
So Searle's argument gives us this really useful way to think about AI, splitting the whole concept into two very different categories, what he called strong AI and weak AI. Okay, so weak AI just simulates intelligence. It's really good at one specific narrow task, like your phone's personal assistant, or a program that helps doctors diagnose a disease. Searle said it's kind of like a parrot with an amazing memory. It can repeat things back perfectly, but it doesn't get the meaning. Strong AI, though, well, that's the real stuff of science fiction. Think C-3PO from Star Wars or Commander Data from Star Trek. We're talking about machines with actual consciousness, with feelings, with creativity.
Now, for about 25 years, this whole symbol matching approach was the absolute cornerstone of AI research, and it led to some incredibly powerful examples of weak AI. Back in the 70s and 80s, they called them expert systems. So let's take one of those medical expert systems. A nurse types in a patient's symptoms. The system then takes those symbols, words like cough, temperature, and checks them against a massive rule book that was written by top doctors. It just follows a bunch of if this, then that rules to come up with the diagnosis. Sound familiar? It should. It's the Chinese room, just for medicine.
To the patient, it might seem like this super smart computer is figuring out what's wrong with them. But the reality is that program doesn't understand medicine any more than the person in the Chinese room understands Mandarin. It's just a very sophisticated phrasebook, matching patterns that humans already gave it.
So you might be wondering, if this approach was so useful, why isn't every computer today just a giant expert system? Well, it turns out these early systems ran into a huge fundamental problem that they just couldn't get past.
The problem has a very cool name, combinatorial explosion. And honestly, this was the technical wall that brought that early AI dream to a screeching halt.
I mean, just think about that medical bot again. You have all the possible symptoms a person could have, all the possible test results, all the different patient histories. The number of possible combinations isn't just big, it's astronomical. That right there is a combinatorial explosion.
To even begin to deal with the messiness of the real world, that rulebook would have to be practically infinite. It was just impossible to write a rule for every single thing that could possibly happen. The whole system would just collapse under its own weight. There were too many patterns to match.
But look, this approach wasn't a failure. Not at all. Today, experts have a kind of charming nickname for it, GoFi, which stands for Good Old-Fashioned AI. It was an absolutely critical first step on the path to creating intelligence. It taught us so much about the power and, more importantly, the deep limitations of just manipulating symbols.
And that brings us right back to today. The AI systems we have now are unbelievably more powerful than GoFi. But John Searle's question is more relevant than it has ever been. As our machines get better and better at talking, at creating art, at solving problems, how will we ever know if they truly understand what they're doing, or if we just built a much more convincing person in the room?